Hello and welcome to Tea Talks. I'm your host Yasmine Tanres, and I want you to grab a cup of tea or your favorite beverage and join me in conversations with today's most influential personalities and thought leaders from across the world while we explore their opinions, journey, and passions. From the art of negotiation to the gamification of relationships and how to maximize your purest potential, you'll be sure to feel informed, engaged, and inspired. So let's take a sip and dive right into it. Cheers. So this next guest that I have here on Tea Talks, it's an absolute pleasure. He's all the way from the UK, right now in LA though. He's the founding director of Myriad Immersive, and he's also a TV director and theatre director. He's also produced the likes of Killer Joe, including Orlando Bloom, and Dazzled with Andrew Scott. He's also a writer and an actor. And as of new and probably unexpected, the go-to man for virtual comedy and drama. So Simon Evans, it's an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us here on Tea Talks.
Thank you. So lovely to be here with you. Thank you so much.
I'm loving your mug.
Well, this is a mug I sent to my girlfriend because she was out here when we made Staged. So I sent.
I love that. At least she had your face right by her side when you were across the pond.
This is it. I hope she goes to sleep with this mug next to her all the time.
Oh, I'm sure, and she wakes up with that. She must.
She must do. She must do. Who wouldn't?
You have a quote on there, I see.
Yes, I do. It's the quote that Judi Dench says about me in the series, where she goes, "He's a well-meaning moth that keeps bumping into the wrong light bulb." Was the line that she said about me. And as with all these things, the beauty of Staged for me was I got to make wonderful people say very nasty things about me, and it was always that was always just a treat. And now I get to print those things on mugs and go, there you go, that's it forever.
Love it. That's what
Judi Dench said about me.
You got to memorize those quotes. That's a keeper right there.
That's it.
Love it. So your girlfriend wakes up to that too, knowing that.
She wakes up to Judi Dench's complete contempt of me. Absolutely.
I love it. So of course we want to dive into what you've been up to during quarantine. Being in theatre and obviously writing and acting, everything has shifted in this time of the pandemic. And so you've shifted very fast into the world of virtual video conferencing and capturing that with actors. So you've had Judi Dench as a cameo, as I understand, and you had Michael Sheen and David Tennant and yourself enact a more amplified version of yourself. So that's pretty awesome.
Or a less amplified version of myself. A quieter, more muted, shitter version of myself is what we've got.
Oh, okay. So tell us a little bit more about the project for those who don't know about it, because that was on the BBC, and it's called Staged, and it made a huge impression on people. So what's the project all about, and how did it come about?
I was supposed to be in this year. I had two things that were sort of confirmed. I was going to be directing a play again, and I was about to be making my first feature film. Both were really exciting things. And then because of all of this, both of those things were obviously put on indefinite hold. And the producer of the film suggested to me, because it was going to be my first feature, he said, at all that I could try to make during this time that would try to sort of just make me better at what I was going to do before we sort of got on the ground and started making a film. And that, we ran the gamut from, I could shoot a short film on my iPhone to, I don't know, an audio drama. I don't know. All the ideas were thrown about. And then because I was about to have directed a play, the idea occurred that, was there a way of using this sort of technology? Which at that point, we started filming this at the beginning of April. So
very
we were
early
a month
onwards.
into. Yeah. And so it was before Zoom had become quite as ubiquitous as it is now. There was a real sense of, can we make something of this? Are we allowed to be funny about this yet? Are we allowed to be ironic about any of this? What's the game? And I wrote this idea of just me and two actors. Me being a sort of hapless young director who had managed to secure two actors to do a play, and was terrified of losing them because of this, and was determined to keep them close through all of this in the hope that the show could still happen afterwards. And we thought, who would be brilliant at this? And my producer knew David Tennant, so him, and he took it to Michael Sheen, and suddenly they liked it enough to want to make a pilot.
Amazing. So I do want to dive into that, because as I understand, or is this true, that you actually didn't have a script fully fleshed out, and when it was approached to Michael Sheen and
when we went to them, we didn't have a script. When we went to them, it was just an idea. It was a sort of here's a treatment of the episode and what the series might be like, and if you guys like it, we'll write a pilot. And they liked it enough to go write a pilot. But we were really against the clock then. So I had a weekend to write the pilot. So I wrote the pilot in 2 days, and we sent it back to them, and they liked that enough to make it. But the whole thing, then to make the pilot took us about 4 weeks to work out how to use the technology and how to record it and how to edit the music might be like and all of that sort of stuff. To make the pilot took us 4 weeks. And then we showed that to the BBC, and the BBC really liked it, so we were allowed to make another 5 to sort of make a 6-episode series. But we made the next 5 in 4 weeks as well, so it took us 4 weeks to make the first one, and then 4 weeks to make the other 5 as well.
The other 5 meaning as in you have another part, or
no, as in for the rest of the series. So it took us 4 weeks to make episode 1, and then the BBC gave us 4 weeks to make episodes 2 to 6.
Wow. Okay, so this is really impressive. So first up, the fact that you wrote the pilot within a weekend, and then having to obviously juggle the technological aspect of it. And it was very early onwards, as you're saying, with Zoom. I mean, we just went on lockdown middle of March, and then going into it in April. That's really fast on your toes to think like, okay, we're going to go ahead with it. And of course, it's great that you had the dynamic duo, as it seems, since they're also both of them co-starring in the Good Omen on.
Of course.
So that worked out perfectly. So you knew they had like a really great dynamic and relationship there. But in terms of for yourself, then having to write so fast, how would you compare this process in comparison to anything other than you've done before? Because this is obviously very different and new.
It's such a great question, and I think this is the first time I've had to write TV. It's the first time I've directed. I mean, I know that directing actors on Zoom and doing it like this is not a conventional sense of directing TV. I'm not, I didn't have lots of different cameras to set up, or like it was just set your camera going. But in terms of the writing of it, I think having so little time was in many ways because I had no time to sort of doubt anything. You sort of just have to shoot from the hip all the time. I mean, there were days when I was writing, for example, I was writing episode 6 while we were filming episode 5, and I was watching the edit of episode 4.
Jesus.
All within a day, and that just meant that there was just no time for me to go, is this any good? Is this any funny? There was no time for me to really have any fear about any of it, which I would have done. My God, if we'd had more time, I think I would have spent all the time going, should I be doing this? This is not my job. I've not done this before. Is this funny? Is this not funny? But because it had to be so quick. It was just write the next episode, because I swear we have to shoot tomorrow. We have to shoot all of this tomorrow. So
wow.
you have to write it today.
And you just had to really trust with what you had put out there instantly, it seems. And
yeah, I mean, yes, except I had David Tennant, Michael Sheen, Judi Dench, Samuel L. Jackson, Adrian Lester, Nina Sasanya, Lucy Eaton, Georgia Tennant, and a number. These are people who make my writing 200% better just by showing up and just reading it. So yes, there was all of those nerves, but you give these guys this, and even if there was a page of shit, they'd still somehow make it sing. So I was gifted by just how brilliant they are.
Yeah, I mean, I'm curious because typically, with actors, they'll typically read the script prior to shooting it. And in this case, it kind of seems like flying with it. And were there ever any moments of anybody being like, oh, I really don't like this. This really doesn't sit well on me. That's really not like me. Like, no, can we change this part or whatever?
Not really. I mean, but then I was writing, as I said, I was writing subsequent episodes while we were filming earlier ones. So I was on a call just like this with David and Michael, and when we weren't shooting, they were talking to each other. So I was getting a really good idea of how they just talk to each other and what their sort of normal back and forth is. So I became pretty good at going, I don't think they'll say this. This seems like a push. But then there were lovely moments, like there's a gag that I ran by Michael Sheen first, because Michael and Samuel L. Jackson have worked together once before. And I had this idea with Michael, and I said, do you mind if I write in a gag where he just doesn't remember you? You've worked together before, but Samuel L. Jackson doesn't remember you at all. And I thought I should run this by Michael, because this could be offensive. He could find this, and he didn't. He was like, that's funny. Let's do that. And
love that.
They were so wonderful and so supportive of the whole thing. And I think certainly by the time we got to sort of episode 2 and 3, they were just quite confident with it. So they were sort of ready to receive an episode and film the next day and hope for the best.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it seems like you built a big, like a nice family in that time. And, you know, especially in that, during the beginning of it, because you honestly didn't know how long the whole lockdown situation could go on for. So I can see and understand as to why you had that time pressure and everything. And for you in that process of writing, directing, acting, you know, how did that work for you? Did you give yourself, did you even have a break, or how were you able to maintain yourself in sanity amongst all of this?
No, absolutely no, in no way. No, it was maddening, absolute madness. No, there was no sanity to it at all. But
you just had to keep on throwing the punches and rolling with it.
Yeah, you just. It sounds flippant, and I don't mean it to be, but there was, from everybody, there just seemed an attitude of, can we make a thing? Can we do something? And it felt like content was starting to be made, but a lot of the content that was being made was very, with no disrespect to it at all, but it was very solemn. A lot of what was being made was very serious and was very, this is what we're all going through. And aren't we all courageous and brave? And aren't we all worthy? And our attitude from the beginning was, just feels like something needs to just pop the balloon slightly and just be a bit ironic about it, and just acknowledge that we're all just having a bit of a shit time. And everyone sort of got behind that. So yeah, there was madness every step. And my God, I had to explain to Dame Judi Dench how to use Zoom. I had to get on a call with Samuel L. Jackson and how to set up this sort of technology. There were moments where I found myself going, I don't know what just happened there, and I'm not ready for this. And the fact that we've made this entire show, and none of us have been in the same room at any point in any of this time. And there's a show that's on the BBC, it's on Hulu, it's on Netflix. We've never been in the same room. It's all mad. It's mad.
If you think about it and zoom out with the lens, you're just like, whoa, what is this?
What is this?
It's an experiment right now, and it's clearly working out. And I love the fact that you've touched upon, you know, there's plenty of, you know, content out there, and news is already providing us with all the solemn, sad news. So it's nice to have that bit of, you know, piece of comedy that's out there, especially having, you know, these incredible actors on board too. And you've also thereafter then been able to do another virtual comedy, which was also for a fundraiser, and it was live streamed at the Oxford Playhouse.
That's
and you
right.
had Stephen Fry included in that, and some other actors that are really notable. So how did that also come about? Because it seemed like after having gone through the process of staged, it seemed like you could, you know, it seems like you've gone into that sort of virtual zone. I wanted to say stage, but yeah. And so how did And this play is called A Theatre Near You.
That's right.
How did that go, and how was the setup like in comparison? Or not
Well,
even in comparison, but just how was that set up?
well, let me start, and thank you for giving me a sort of platform for that. But it's worth saying at the top that, so I'm from Oxford originally, and the Oxford Playhouse is a regional theatre there, and I mean, theatre's in the doldrums at the moment. Everyone's so concerned about what the future of theatre is going to be in a world where we can't let people back into buildings in excess. And while lots of the major theatres in the UK are getting a lot of wonderful funding, the regional theatres are not getting anything like that. And these spaces are just sort of sitting there in need of funding and in need of audiences. They're not the kinds of theatres that can necessarily guarantee that a huge star can come back and join them. So it's going to take a lot to persuade audiences to come back to those. So the Oxford Playhouse was, was a place that I had, that's where I saw theatre for the first time. So after we'd made stage, they reached out to me and said, we're trying to put together this sort of virtual fundraiser evening in a theatre near you, and would I like to come and direct that? And it was the easiest thing in the world. Of course, it was completely different than anything we've done. Not for me ostensibly. I mean, the job was still pointing the cameras in the right place, try to cut it together live in the right way. But the wonderful performers who took part in that, Marcus Brickstock and Stephen and all of these people who had no audience. They were trying to do comedy and they were trying to sing songs but they were performing it to an empty auditorium, and that was part of the game. And to sort of set foot in a theatre with nobody there, and to watch a performance with nobody there to watch it is these are not buildings that are supposed to be empty. It's like walking into a church. It's like walking into a football stadium. It's anything where you walk in and you go, this is a building that's supposed to just bounce sound and bounce laughter and applause and everything. Yeah. It's built to resonate the sound of other people, so that you have this amazing communal experience, and they're just empty. And they don't do anything. They don't exist without people in there to watch what you're doing. It's not TV, it's not film. It's about sitting there next to somebody else and crying at the same thing that they cry at, and laughing at the same thing they laugh at.
Yes. Well, I mean, touching upon that subject then, because the UK is obviously, filled with theatres. Here in LA, it's different in terms of movie theatres that have been empty, and slowly in Orange County they've opened some up, but literally there's just one or two people sitting in there, and it's like it feels really solemn and ghostly. And having done this live stream, how do you think the UK or any part of the world that has a heavy culture of theatre, how could that look like in the future? How do you think actors are also going to feel about that? How do you think the entire industry is going to feel about that?
I would love to have an answer for you on that. I think much smarter people than me are trying to work out that at the moment. I think cinema and TV is a thing that you can experience a bit more individually. I mean, I went to the cinema here in Los Angeles 2 weeks ago, and I sat in the auditorium with what must have been 8 other people. But my experience of watching the film was not hugely different than it would have been if I'd been in there with 100. We were all sort of having our own moment with the film. But theatre's different. I don't know. I don't know how you try to make something. Theatre works by sort of, it's like any ritual. It works by amplification. It works that somebody laughs somewhere and somebody else laughs because they've laughed, and suddenly the whole room's laughing.
Yeah, the same. I mean, it kind of makes me think of, those like sitcom comedies or something, and they have the fake laughter in the background, and actually they have an audience, small audience sometimes behind the cameras as well, so they're laughing and stuff. And I'm just wondering if that's what's going to happen, if they're going to have to set up like, fake laughters or sound effects or whatever. But you're right in terms of having, there's been a couple of actors that have done some sort of more private locations to still work on their material, to still keep that muscle going in terms of comedy, for instance. But as a result of what you had created at the Oxford Playhouse, how did you feel about the result, at least?
Oh, well, it was very touching to sort of read the things that people said in response to that, and how much they had been affected by what they sort of seeing the theatre that they love on a screen and seeing people on stage with them like that. But I feel like that's, my goodness, I don't want to be pessimistic, but it feels like that's a sort of momentary salve. That's a thing which can give us a little moment of, oh, isn't that a nostalgic glimmer of something we used to know? But that, I don't feel like that's going to be a consistent thing. Look, there's a different thing, for example, to the National Theatre sort of re-releasing some of their National Theatre Live things, even though they're not live, and something like the Old Vic, which is doing their in-camera set, which Michael Sheen did one of. He did the Faith Healer, and you were able to watch that live on Zoom from home.
Wow.
But all of these things, you go, if you're filming theatre, there is a better version of that, which is an actual film. That theatre, I don't think, is meant to be filmed. That's not how it will exist.
Mm-hmm.
And if the idea is that for theatre to exist, it will just have to be filmed, you go, well, then it won't, because films are better at that.
Yeah.
They're better at capturing an emotion, and within camera. In the world, you wouldn't film a story in a theatre. You'd film a story on a set or on location or whatever it is. So I don't know.
Well, hopefully, sports has come back over here, for instance, and they've allowed quite a few people to watch live. Hopefully that will be the case in the world of theatre. We've touched upon film as well. You were supposed to have your directorial debut for Hunter in the Dark.
Yeah,
and
that's right.
That's been placed on hold. And you mentioned earlier on indefinitely, and I was like, oh my God, that word indefinitely, that freaks me out, because we're still here. But hopefully 2021 will be better. Who knows? But do you have any sense or idea? Tell us about the project first, and do you have any sense or idea as to what that could look like for you going back on set? Because some, shows have relaunched again in terms of filming, but they're having all these rules in place of, having to get a test every second day or so, and then having different groups of people being grouped as well as to how much interaction they can have with the distance and everything. So have you got any news for yourself with your project, and tell us about it as well?
No major news. So I was very lucky to become a part of this. So the stage, a guy called Finn Glynn, reached out to me last year. He had optioned a novel called Hunters in the Dark by Lawrence Osborne, and he wanted to know if I would be interested in writing the script for it and adapting it. And so I read the novel and loved it. So I wrote the screenplay, and they liked it a lot, and they liked it enough that they asked me if I would be interested in directing it. And I was like, yeah, I would very much. Please, thank you. I would like that. I would like that very much.
It's that Britishness. Who would
I know.
like to? Yes, please. Thank you very much. So polite.
So much. Yes, I would, please. If I could, that would be a treat. I'm keen.
Very delightful.
Thank you so much. And so we were sort of moving ahead. We were moving ahead with that, and we were sort of almost ready to go. We sort of had a cast, and we had a DOP, and everything was good to go. It's set in Cambodia. It's a sort of talented Mr. Ripley, Graham Greene style thriller. It's a Britishman abroad who gets mistaken for somebody else, and trouble ensues because he decides to go along with it and just sort of go, yes, I'll live as somebody else out here for a while, and he gets into trouble accordingly. And we were all ready to go.
And it was going to be set and shot in Cambodia as well.
Okay. Set and shot in Cambodia, and that was all ready. And Cambodia is, it's a stunningly beautiful country, but it has a dry season and it has a wet season, and just cinematically, the wet season is where you want to shoot in the wet season. You know,
Oh.
there's a lot of neon in the capital city in Phnom Penh, and when it rains, it just comes alive. And you want to be able to shoot thunderclouds in the distance, and you want to shoot in the wet season. So we were scheduled to head out in sort of May, and then this all happened. So that was sort of put on hold. And now we'll wait and see. We're sort of still all ready to go. Everyone wants to do it. We just want to be told when we can fly to Cambodia and make a movie.
Yes, now I can understand why you said indefinitely, because I did not know it was going to be set in Cambodia. And of course, now with the travel restrictions and such, you want to be careful. But
Cambodia's in really good shape.
Yeah.
But it's just sort of, I say in really good shape. What does that even mean anymore? But it's sort of, we just need to out there and make it happen.
Okay, well, hopefully next year. Let's see what happens. When's the raining season anyways?
March to like October.
March till October. Okay, so hopefully sometime then you'll be able to do that. Are you going to be working in the meantime as such on any other virtual projects or anything?
Yeah, I'm afraid I can't tell you what yet.
Okay, so but there is something in the pipeline. You are rolling in the virtual trenches.
I have been shooting while I've been out here, and
so we'll get a glimpse of LA onto BBC.
I couldn't even tell you where. Where.
Okay. Wow, it's like top secret right now. Okay.
Couldn't even tell you where. But hopefully in the next week or so, I think.
In the next week or so, sorry.
People will know. It'll be known.
Okay, awesome. Well, before I let you go, we got a little special segment. Given that you direct actors and you've had to do this over Zoom, what's a quick little exercise that you'd like to do with actors before they get into the zone, or is there anything that you do with them? And you can totally play with me. I'll play along. I'll follow your lead. Whatever it is that you want to share with our audience here.
Well, this was a lovely thing to ask, and I sort of thought that there's obviously, say, in terms of working with stage actors, and always the thing you do with stage actors first is you just go, can you just read this thing through, and let's just acknowledge that there's no such thing as a stupid question, and that's the fun thing. Just ask any question that you want to. It always amazes me how often you can get to week 4 or 5 of a rehearsal process and people go, I didn't get this, and you go, well, that's just, don't be embarrassed, just ask all the stupid questions. There's no such thing, please ask away. But I thought, rather than diving into we could just talk a tiny bit about Zoom and about sort of shooting like this, because it's mad and it's stupid, and you're so sort of limited by what you can do, but there's also opportunities to what you can do. And the big limitation is that if you're making any normal sort of TV, you can be variable with your image and your photography, and you can mix things up. Whereas here we are literally limited by this. The square. So you're there in your square.
You're there in your square.
And I'm here in my square. So my first question to you would be, how could we add movement into your frame? What could we do? What could you do there that would, if we were filming a scene now for staged, what we put into this Zoom, into your box for?
Is it have somebody random just walk in the background, have myself pick up the laptop, walk around and...
Yeah, of course. But here you go. You pick up the laptop is difficult for continuity, because if I want to cut between different takes, that's
a good point.
These are the things we find very quickly when we go, what a great idea. But no. So what could you do there? I mean, so your first thing I think is proximity to the camera.
So you want to be really close?
Or how close do you want to get to the camera? Yeah, okay, well now you're looking different. And then how close do you want to get?
I see. Like much closer.
You could, because we could have a really intimate moment.
Hello. It's like face to face, smushing the faces against our squares.
We could have a tiny little whispered conversation that goes, "This is so silly what we're doing."
Oh my God, this is actually quite funny. It does weirdly feel more intimate when you are closer to the screen.
But all I am is just closer to my camera, and you're just closer to yours. We're no closer to each other. In fact, geographically, I might have just moved further away from you. You might be that way more than I am. It doesn't make any sense at all.
That is so true.
But it's fun. But what else could you do? You've got a bottle of reserve and a nice bottle of brandy up there. I can see those things. You could pour yourself a drink. I
could get up, pour myself a drink. Yeah.
You could, and you've got some lovely sight lines. You've got a corridor in the back there that I can see that goes behind that amazing work of art, and that just you could cross across there, and I could call for you. Like if this is what we're going to be in for a while, I think
those are the things to really think about.
But then the
stage.
And the thing you've got to really think about, I think, within all of that is what are, if we're going to have to do it like this for a while. And my God, if you're an independent filmmaker, or if you can make, this is really cheap to make, and it's really easy to make if you can find the right vessel for it. So then I say to people, what is the story whereby two people have to talk like this that's dramatically interesting? And why is the reason that they talk like this the really interesting thing? I mean, my God, just coming over here to see my girlfriend, we were on a FaceTime group for couples who, just because of COVID, have not been able to see each other for months.
They've been separated.
Yeah, and they can't get into each other's country for all of the reasons. And you go, well, that's a short play. That's an hour of a conversation like this. I mean, there are couples whose babies have been born while they can't get into the country. Tell that story. Tell that story.
Yeah.
Tell a 9-month story when, the woman becomes increasingly pregnant, and then the last scene is she walks in with a pram and presents and just sort of sits down with it. It's just everyone wants to communicate.
I mean, I guess we often forget that it's not really about the visuality of it. It obviously adds a lot of, it adds a factor and element, but it really is more the narrative itself, the story itself, So like you're saying, going into real life stories. And that's a good reminder, I would say, right there, to be able to, put something out if you really wanted to think about, okay, how can I do this just like that for the time being? There are so many interesting, fascinating things that are still happening, even if we are in our confined spaces.
Well, yeah, I mean, you're always looking for the conflict between people. I think we're always looking for why are these two people talking, and where is it going to be funny and where is it going to be sad? And what is funny and what is sad is different now than it was last year. But it's still fairly universal, I think. I think we all find the same thing sad, and
it's fairly relatable. Yeah. Well, I wanted to ask you as a final question then, is there an upcoming, what is an upcoming project that you would really like to work on? Aside from what you have coming up, something that you would really like to work on?
Good last question.
Always the hard one.
I don't know. I'd like to make something about space, and I don't mean space with a capital S. I mean Field of Dreams. I mean something about a big field and people together in open space, chucking a ball. I'd like to make something where people just get to breathe in a big way and just feel light again, and like the air isn't toxic. I'd like a thing where just people run in grass. I don't know what that is. Just something that's
screams freedom. Freedom in space.
That's all I want.
We definitely need that.
Freedom in space. I want to shoot a drone thing where someone hits a baseball and I follow the ball and it goes for miles, and someone is there or something. I don't know. But Field of Dreams is a movie that I have deliberately not watched through all of this because I think it'll break me. But something like that.
Or make you, or open something up.
Or make me, but it's too big a risk at the moment. Because if it breaks me, it'll break me hard.
When the time is right, you might explore it. definitely think you're onto something. Obviously, we're feeling that lack of freedom and space. So it'd be nice to see something that can convey that and make us feel that way, as long as like we're still in this.
Exactly.
Well, thank you so much, Simon Evans, for joining me here on
so
Tea Talks. It's been wonderful connecting with you. Got to thank our dear friend Jeff Fahey, who's put us together here. And I'm happy for you that you were able to come here and see your girlfriend as well. And wish you the best of luck going back to the UK.
Thank you so much.
Be safe
You
and
too.
healthy. And where can people follow up on what's going on within your journey and the new content that's coming out, what seems to be soon?
Well, I'm very limited on social media. I'm at Simon Evans 25 on Twitter. You know, find me there, and yeah, if there's any news, I sometimes know about it first, but I'll know about it second or third. If not, I can say things then.
Google Simon Evans and head on over to his Twitter, Simon Evans 25.
That's me.
Perfect. Well, cheers. Thank you so much, Simon.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for joining us here today. If you liked that episode, please like, comment, and share, and subscribe to this channel so that you know when the next conversation is up. I love to hear your thoughts and engage, so please don't be a stranger. Cheers.